Anyone who watches art videos on YouTube has presumably watched a ton of videos from Jazza, and you're very likely subscribed to him. I know he was the first art channel that I ever followed on YouTube. I would watch his videos in the background while I was at my first animation job, something like 8 years ago now. Anyway, as lots of you probably know, Jazza recently brought back his old fan favorite series, the Character Design Sessions, which he's rebranded as the Ultimate Character Design videos. In them, he randomly generates prompts for a character, and then designs the character and tells a story about that character. That felt so up my alley in terms of stuff that I do on this channel, so I figured since Jazza was encouraging other artists and YouTubers to jump on board this idea, I thought I'd do one on here, but with a bit of a PopCross Studios twist. First of all, I'm going to come up with 3 characters, a protagonist, an antagonist, and a monster. And I'll come up with designs for all of them and tell a story about all of those characters and how they're interacting. And of course, because this is PopCross Studios and a lot of what I do is focused around pop culture crossovers, I'm going to use a bunch of different pop culture books and cards and games and stuff like that to generate the prompts for my characters in this video. Something that you'll likely see in a montage that's going to start in 1 second, right after I encourage people to hit the like button to help with algorithm nonsense. Oh, actually, I don't even need my like thing. This shirt that I got from Crazy Chicken Animation Store is kind of a thumbs up. Yeah. There you go. There. Like button. Anyway, let's get into that montage. Let's go. Okay. First things first, I'm going to take my janky old busted up phone case with some very nice art on it by Derek Laufman and toss it behind me onto the comics sitting on my bed. I'm going to do that 3 times, once for each of the characters in this video, and that will decide the first part of the prompt for each of these characters. Let's see what happens. I totally missed. Should have seen that coming. Come on! Hit the like. This is not going as well as I anticipated. Come on. Ah! Come on. Oh, that sounded right. Okay, that's that for our comic book characters. Now on to some video game characters. Because Super Smash Bros. Ultimate has so many different characters in it, I am going to use the random character selector in the game, and whoever it gives me is who I'm using for each of our characters in this video. Okay, and now I'm going to go back to one of the most old and nerdy art challenges I've ever done on this channel, which is the Random Booster Art Challenge. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open 3 packs of cards, pick my favorite card out of each, and use those for our respective characters in this video. Okay, now for the final piece of this puzzle, I'm going to generate the universe or genre that this story is going to take place in by rolling a d20 3 times. Whatever the numbers add up to, I'm going to count back through my own Instagram, and whatever the drawing is, we're going to put these characters and this story in that same universe. I'm doing it this way because, as people who watch this channel regularly know, I really like when I write characters into the same universes as characters from past episodes. So, let's see what we get. Okay, so for our final recap here, I need to make a story about a protagonist that's a mix of Carnage, Zero Suit Samus, and Vibrava, facing off against an antagonist that's a mix of Jason Todd, King K. Rool, and Turtonator, and then somehow also work in a monster that's a mix between Naruto, Greninja, and a rooting Moloch. And all of that has to happen in a steampunk universe. And I don't have a ton of time to do it because I spent way longer than I should have on that opening whole spiel of me picking my prompts. I'm used to working under tight deadlines. I'm sure I can come up with something. I've got a bit of research I'm gonna do, then do some writing, start into the designs, but as far as you're concerned, it's time to start into the story and artwork. Let's see where this goes. Vibravia Aran hated being on Earth. It stunk of smog, and everywhere you turned there was a deafening whir of steam engines powering everything under the sun. It was a primitive planet compared to the ones she usually spent her time hunting on, but currently, she had no choice. The creature she sought on this planet was the one mission she believed she could accomplish that would prove to the guild that she deserved her rank back. She soared above the streets through clouds of deep fog for the 3rd week in a row. The wings she'd built herself from technology she'd wrangled up on Earth were satisfactory, but nothing compared to the usual armor she fought with. But to get that back, she needed to re-earn the guild's trust. She sneered at the thought. They should trust her already. Regardless, every fiber of Vibravia's being had been locked on to finding this elusive beast for the last few weeks. The creature's stats were largely unknown because of its incredible stealth abilities, but it was known that it was around 12 feet tall, humanoid in shape, and had 9 sticky tendrils, possibly tails. It was also rumored to be able to hurl some kind of energy projectiles, but there was no confirmation of this. Most of the hunters who tracked the beast had vanished on the hunt. Even some of the best had fallen at the hands of this thing. Into her 14th hour of searching that night, Vibravia's eyes were starting to droop. She needed a boost. A boost from the very thing that had gotten her disowned from the guild. She tensed all the muscles in her body, and through her skin seeped out the parasite. See, Vibravia's species was one born with a protective parasite in them, like a far more dramatic version of adrenaline in humans, useful to enhance strength, speed, and fighting ability in case of emergency, but the more one of her kind used it, the more the parasite had the potential to take over their mind and drive them mad. Her perceived overuse of this parasite is what pushed the guild to deem her unfit for the hunt. They thought she'd become too violent and sadistic, killing targets when an arrest was possible. So, her mission stood. Capture the most elusive prey on the guild's hit list and take it in alive to prove her steady mind. And tonight, she'd finally get her chance. Leaping through tunnels of smoke from rooftop to rooftop, Vibravia saw the creature. She readied her gun, stretched her parasite across her hand, forming a massive claw, then soared down towards the target. She was closing the distance fast, nearly on the beast. She raised her gun to shoot, but just before her shot could ring true, a plume of fire burst in front of her. She evaded too quickly and lost control of her primitive wings, and crashed onto a nearby building. "Sorry, lady," a voice said, leaping onto the roof, "but that freak is spoken for." Vibravia's wings were too damaged to function, but with full use of her parasite, she could continue the chase on foot. She fired backward at the interloper, but continued after her true target. "You listening to me or what?" He charged after her with agility that nearly rivaled hers. As he approached, bounding after her on roofs, he shot streams of fire out of cannons on his forearms. A burst grazed Vibravia's arm, and her parasite reeled back, emitting a furious shriek. The distraction made her slip. She tumbled off the rooftop and crashed 4 stories down to an alley below. The parasite recovered, and Vibravia pulled herself up as her new opponent leapt across the roof above. "Sorry, lady, but if anyone's killing that thing tonight, it's gonna be me." Vibravia inadvertently snarled at the boy. She needed that thing alive, but that didn't mean she had to leave this kid in one piece. But see, Jason Rule, better known as Cruel Red nowadays, had a score to settle with the beast. See, it had been quite a year for Red, having a moral crisis after being brought back to life by a gang of murderous vigilantes that he'd once fought against, joining them as their new leader with an altered outlook on killing villains and monsters. But it had all started with this very creature killing him while he was showing it mercy. This time, he'd be ready for the fight. Not only did he no longer have the hindrance of his old moral code, but he also had all the best gadgets that his new gang, the Krakator Raiders, could build him. He was catching up to the creature, and it noticed. The thing slid to a halt and turned back to Red. In its hand whirred up a glowing yellow sphere. The ball grew and grew, but before it could be fired, Vibravia leapt up from the street behind the creature and grabbed it around the neck. Its tails flailed and hammered against Vibravia. Even with her parasite's aid, she was struggling to hold tight. "Perfect," Red said, landing on the roof with them. "Now hold it steady." A cannon of fire erupted from his forearms. Vibravia hurled the creature aside, and fire engulfed her. Her parasite shrieked all around her and discombobulated her. Furiously through the confusion, she whipped up her gun and fired it wildly in the direction of Red. He spun around and the bullets plinked off the armor shell on his back. With his stream of fire ceased, Vibravia lunged towards Red, grabbed his arm and slammed him to the ground. The parasite stretched back again over her hand and she raised a claw in a blind rage. But before she could slash, there was a bellow of screams from the street below. They both looked down to see the creature charging towards a crowd of horrified civilians. Vibravia was briefly distracted, but still had every intention of slicing Red in two. Lucky for him, he could take advantage of her quick lapse. He spun himself out from under her and leapt towards the street, yelling back, "Come on, it's gonna kill someone!" Vibravia was struck for a moment, unsure what to think. Had she just prioritized killing someone over catching a target? Not to mention the safety of those civilians? Regardless, he was right. She followed him off the roof and charged after the creature. It flung itself into a group of horrified onlookers and snatched 3 of them up in its tails. It hurled them all toward Red, and Vibravia leapt in to catch the other 2, setting them all down safely. The creature suddenly swung a large padded hand in front of its face, and as it did, puffs of smoke appeared all around, from which 4 more identical creatures appeared. They all scattered through the crowd. Vibravia charged at the middle one on instinct, but when she lunged at it, it turned to smoke once more, and she fell through it. Once more, anger was building up in her gut. If this thing escaped, that would just mean more time on this filthy planet. She went after another and another, shoving scared and scattering civilians out of the way. After slashing her way through more puffs of deceptive smoke, she finally saw the real thing. Not again, you freak! The crowd had cleared, and in the middle of the foggy street was the creature, tails wrapped around every limb of Red, staring straight into his eyes. It lifted him off the ground and wrapped its hands around his head. Stop it! Not again! Help! His tough facade had faded, and Vibravia could hear genuine horror in his voice. His helmet creaked between the beast's massive hands. Vibravia was momentarily frozen. If she did nothing, he'd be out of the way, and she could take the beast for herself. But the very fact that that was such a tempting option revealed everything Vibravia needed to know about her own mental state. She pulled back her gun and fired it rapidly with precision aim at each of the creature's tails. They flailed and fell limp, dropping Red to the ground. The creature tumbled backward along the street, then started off fleeing again. Red, still panting fearfully, looked back at Vibravia. She recalled her parasite back into her skin, burying it deep within herself as she turned and walked off. Thanks, I guess," Red said as he leapt up and charged on after the beast once more. Vibravia trudged through the echoing streets with new perspective. The guild may have been right about her. Maybe she wasn't ready to rejoin their ranks. But knowing that was the first step she needed to take. She would become good and honorable and worthy of joining the guild once more, and then prove it both to her comrades and herself. Maybe not today, but someday. Alright, I am quite pleased with how this came together overall. I mean, there are some things that are better than others. I definitely like the creature design the best. I think the Red Hood one is a little bit weird looking, but not too bad overall. I also probably could have worked more of the steampunk world into the character designs. Finally, for the story, I kind of wish I'd had a little bit more time to develop Vibravia's character arc of self-realization, but given that I only had about 2 days to do the art, the story, and of course do everything for the video, again, pretty pleased with this. And of course, if anyone hasn't checked out Jazza's ultimate character design video, make sure to go watch that. I'll link it in the cards and wherever else. Jazza has obviously been a huge influence on this channel because he was the first art channel that I ever followed, and it was really fun taking on, you know, his character design challenge, even if I changed it up a bunch to fit the format of my channel a little bit better. And I'd love to see more videos like that from him, and that's more likely to happen if more people go and watch that, so, you know, go give it a watch, or another watch. And if you're new to this channel, make sure to check out some of the best stuff I've got on here. I'll put a playlist of some of my favorite videos at the end on the end screen thing. But some of the best stuff is turning pop culture characters into dragons, venomizing stuff, and one of my personal favorites from a few weeks ago is probably my Spider-Bat Let There Be Carnage episode. It's a Marvel DC mashup thing with a story kinda similar to how I did this video. But anyway, everybody, that's all for today. I'm Christian Pearson. This has been PopCross Studios, home of the nerdiest art videos on YouTube. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, and I will see you all in the next one. Goodbye.